Hollywood's golden age was dripping with glitz, glamour, and espionage. What if the silver screen's biggest stars weren't just acting in spy movies, they were living them for real? Imagine Cary Grant, Marlene Dietrich, or Greta Garbo not just dodging paparazzi, but dodging Nazi agents. So, which A-lister smuggled secrets in invisible ink, and who offered to take out Hitler personally? Stick around, because what you're about to discover will forever change how you see these screen legends. Cary Grant. What's more dangerous, facing down the bad guy on a Hollywood set, or slipping into the role of a real-life undercover agent with Nazis lurking in the wings? For Cary Grant, the answer was simple. Both. Behind that million-dollar smile and effortless charm, Grant was hiding a secret more daring than any role he ever played. While audiences swooned over his debonair antics in Notorious or North by Northwest, the real action was happening off camera, in the smoky back rooms and glitzy cocktail parties of 1940s Hollywood. When World War II ignited, the film industry became a playground for propaganda, political intrigue, and outright sabotage. Enter Britain's secret weapon in America, the British Security Coordination, or BSC. They set up shop in New York, desperate to root out Axis sympathizers and sway U.S. sentiment toward the Allies. And who better to infiltrate Hollywood's high society than its most beloved leading man? Grant volunteered his services to British intelligence, using his star power to rub shoulders with producers, actors, and socialites who didn't realize their conversations were being mentally recorded and quietly reported. Grant's job wasn't just playing detective for gossip. He attended lavish parties and A-list gatherings, listening for loose lips, Nazi sympathies, or anti-British leanings. Names like Errol Flynn and Gary Cooper even ended up on his radar, prompting investigations by Allied intelligence. Imagine Grant sipping a martini, then slipping away to jot coded notes that could change the course of the war. Grant's undercover contributions didn't go unnoticed. After the war, he was awarded the rare King's Medal for Service in the cause of freedom, a civilian honor almost never given to movie stars. Yet, he never bragged. In public, Grant was the perfect leading man. In private, he was protecting democracy one cocktail party at a time. In a world obsessed with on-screen heroes, Grant proved that sometimes the bravest performances happen when nobody's watching. Marlene Dietrich. She slinked across the silver screen like she owned it, her sultry voice and bedroom eyes setting hearts and studio executives on fire. But Marlene Dietrich was more than Hollywood's ultimate femme fatale. During the Second World War, she became a one-woman psychological warfare operation, weaponizing her fame and smoky vocals against the Nazis. Born in Berlin, Dietrich had every reason to play it safe. Instead, she ripped up her German passport, became an American citizen, and marched straight into the heart of the Allied war effort. Her assignment? Not just to entertain, but to undermine the enemy's soul. Dietrich was recruited by the OSS, the precursor to the CIA, and placed under their Morale Operations Division. Her weapon of choice wasn't a gun or a code book. It was her voice. Dietrich recorded melancholy German love songs and propaganda messages which were broadcast to Axis soldiers on the front lines. Picture this. Tired, homesick German troops listening to Dietrich's haunting rendition of Lili Marleen, her voice dripping with nostalgia and subtle subversion. It was psychological warfare at its most poetic. But Dietrich didn't just stop at the microphone. She toured the front with the USO, performed for troops in hellish combat zones, and boosted morale wherever she went. Meanwhile, her broadcasts were part of Operation Musak, a massive Allied effort to demoralize the enemy through music, poetry, and propaganda. Dietrich also risked her life smuggling anti-Nazi messages to resistance fighters and even offered to go undercover in occupied Europe. The payoff. Dietrich was awarded the Medal of Freedom, America's highest civilian honor, for her service. But her greatest victory may have been how she weaponized celebrity, using glamour and song as a shield for the cause of liberty. The Nazis loathed her, but the Allies adored her. In the end, Dietrich showed the world that the right voice, at the right moment, could be more devastating than any bomb. For Marlene, the war wasn't just personal. It was her stage, and she performed for freedom. Greta Garbo. You know Greta Garbo as Hollywood's most mysterious icon, the star who wanted to be alone. But solitude wasn't her only secret. Garbo's real-life drama played out far from the cameras, in a world where espionage and danger weren't just plot devices, but daily realities. After dazzling audiences in Grand Hotel and Ninochka, Garbo vanished from public life at her peak, fueling endless rumors. Was she hiding from fame, or hiding something much bigger? The truth? Garbo became a shadowy asset for the Allies. She wasn't just whispering lines on set. She was whispering in the ears of kings, diplomats, and spies. The world was at war, and Britain's MI6 needed every edge they could find. Enter Garbo, a Swedish national, fluent in multiple languages, and beloved by both Hollywood and Europe's elite. Her unique connections put her in the perfect spot to influence Sweden's wartime politics, which were critical as the Nazis courted Swedish neutrality. But here's where it gets jaw-dropping. According to declassified British records and accounts from her producer friend and MI6 asset Alexander Korda, Garbo didn't just provide diplomatic cover. She volunteered for a secret mission to assassinate Adolf Hitler himself. The plan? Use Hitler's obsession with Garbo to lure him close, then strike. While the operation never materialized, the very idea is enough to leave your jaw on the floor. Instead, Garbo was tasked with quietly nudging Sweden away from the Axis powers through private influence. Her Manhattan apartment became a rumored safe house for clandestine Allied meetings and refugee passage. Even years later, MI6 operatives credited Garbo's subtle diplomacy with helping shape the fate of neutral nations. Garbo never talked. She slipped away from the spotlight and took her secrets with her. But the record is clear. She was more than a screen legend. She was a silent force in the fight for freedom. The most silent woman in Hollywood may have changed the course of history with nothing but a whispered word and the world's most inscrutable smile, Josephine Baker. If you think showbiz doesn't mix with spycraft, Josephine Baker's story will flip your world upside down. She wasn't just the toast of Paris, a jazz superstar and a fashion icon. She was also one of the Allies' most daring spies. Baker's stage presence was electrifying, but what she did off stage was even more mind-blowing. During World War II, as Nazi boots stomped through France, Baker made a choice that most wouldn't dare. She stayed. Rather than fleeing, she leveraged her fame to move through embassies, galas, and diplomatic soirees, charming Axis officials into dropping their guard. To the enemy, she was just an entertainer. In reality, she was a walking intelligence operation. Baker memorized troop movements and critical conversations, then jotted down coded notes using invisible ink on her sheet music. How did she get those secrets across borders? With pure audacity. Baker sewed classified documents into her dresses, hid microfilm in her hairpins, and tucked messages inside makeup compacts. Her status as a world-famous entertainer meant that customs officers and border guards rarely dared to search her luggage or her person. The Nazis saw glitter and feathers. They missed the secrets smuggled right under their noses. But Baker didn't just traffic in information. She turned her chateau in the south of France into a resistance headquarters, hiding refugees, weapons, and Allied agents. She hosted clandestine meetings in plain sight, using music and laughter as the perfect camouflage for subversion. When Allied forces needed intel that could tip the balance of a campaign, it was often Baker's network that delivered. After the war, General Charles de Gaulle awarded her both the Croix de Guerre and the Resistance Medal, cementing her as a true hero of the French resistance. Baker's story proves that courage isn't about carrying a gun. It's about using what you've got, even if it's a stage costume and a killer smile. The world remembers her for her dance moves, but history should remember her for her moves in the shadows. Josephine Baker, the cabaret queen who outwitted the Nazis and helped save the free world, Hedy Lamarr. Hollywood's most beautiful woman didn't just light up the screen. She rewired the battlefield. Hedy Lamarr is proof that you should never judge a book by its cover or an actress by her close-up. With cheekbones that could cut glass and a stare that stopped traffic, Lamarr was often dismissed as just another pretty face in classics like Algiers and Samson and Delilah. But under the Hollywood glitz, she was an inventor, a rebel, and a stealth genius who helped bring down the Nazis. Born in Austria, Lamarr escaped Europe as Hitler's shadow spread across the continent. She landed in Hollywood, but never lost sight of what was happening back home. Unlike most stars who simply sold war bonds or posed for propaganda posters, Lamar wanted to strike at the enemy's heart. Teaming up with composer and fellow innovator George Antheil, she devised an idea years ahead of its time, a radio frequency hopping system that could prevent Nazi forces from jamming Allied torpedoes. Here's the kicker. Their secret communication system worked by rapidly switching radio frequencies, making it nearly impossible for the enemy to intercept or block the signal. While the U.S. Navy was too slow, and frankly, too sexist, to implement her technology during World War II, Lamar's invention became the blueprint for modern Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS decades later. Lamar never stormed the beaches or parachuted into danger. Her war was fought in blueprints and patent offices, in a world that thought beautiful women couldn't possibly change history. She proved them all wrong. After the war, her invention was finally recognized, and she was awarded by the Electronic Frontier Foundation as the mother of Wi-Fi. So next time someone tells you Hedy Lamarr was just a bombshell, you can drop this truth bomb. Her beauty might have been legendary, but her mind was lethal. Lamar's real legacy isn't on celluloid. It's in every smartphone and Wi-Fi router on Earth. Talk about the ultimate plot twist. Paul Henreid. If you only know Paul Henreid as the gallant Victor Laszlo from Casablanca, the rebel leader who stares down Nazis with cool, unwavering resolve, then buckle up. Henreid wasn't just acting. He was living his own war of resistance, fighting the Third Reich off-screen with just as much courage, if not more. Born in Austria-Hungary, Henreid saw the rise of fascism firsthand and knew what was at stake. He fled Europe as Hitler's grip tightened, leaving behind family, friends, and a future in the old world. When he landed in Hollywood, he didn't just settle for movie stardom. He used his new platform to become a real-life anti-Nazi crusader. While his Casablanca persona was inspiring Americans on the big screen, Henreid was actively supporting Allied intelligence, funneling money, coded messages, and even new recruits to anti-Nazi groups operating across borders. He became a thorn in the Nazis' side, and they noticed. The Gestapo reportedly put his name on a hit list, and his relatives back in Europe faced constant surveillance. But Henreid was relentless. He used Hollywood connections to raise huge sums for refugee relief, smuggled information to resistance groups in Austria and France, and helped coordinate propaganda efforts that turned public opinion against the Axis. Allies and U.S. intelligence recognized Henreid as a key influencer, a public figure who could quietly sway crowds and sometimes officials. While he was never officially decorated or publicly thanked, those who knew the score understood what Henreid risked. He was Victor Laszlo, both on and off screen, a man of principle in an age desperate for them. So the next time you see that iconic airport goodbye in Casablanca, remember, Paul Henreid wasn't just pretending. He was a genuine freedom fighter, and the resistance was very real. David Niven. Some stars fight the war with stirring speeches and fundraising balls. David Niven fought it with parachutes, pistols, and a flair for covert chaos. Best known for his impeccable British wit in classics like Around the World in 80 Days and A Matter of Life and Death, Niven wasn't just a Hollywood gentleman. He was one of the few actors to abandon a thriving career and go straight to the front lines when Britain called. When World War II erupted, Niven returned to England and immediately rejoined the British Army despite his fame. But this wasn't about PR or patriotic photo ops. Niven's experience and charisma landed him a role with the Commandos and, later, British Special Operations. He trained agents in parachute drops and sabotage, and even led undercover missions across occupied Europe, sometimes behind enemy lines, always one misstep away from disaster. On one mission, Niven parachuted into France to prepare the resistance for D-Day, blending into villages and passing coded messages under the noses of Nazi patrols. He coordinated with local fighters, gathered intelligence, and relayed crucial updates to Allied command. His celebrity status was a double-edged sword. Sometimes it provided cover, sometimes it painted a bullseye on his back. What set Niven apart was his ability to keep secrets and remain relentlessly humble. He rarely discussed his wartime exploits, once telling an interviewer, "I was given orders and I carried them out." After the war, Niven returned to Hollywood with medals on his chest and 1,000 untold stories, his on-screen confidence now colored by the shadows of real danger. Niven proved that a true gentleman is defined not by the suits he wears or the lines he delivers, but by the risks he takes for what's right, When the world needed heroes, Niven put down the script and picked up a rifle. The real action wasn't on the set. It was under a moonlit sky, behind enemy lines, fighting for freedom. Sterling Hayden. Hollywood has seen plenty of tough guys, but Sterling Hayden was the real deal, a leading man who turned down the bright lights to sail headfirst into darkness. With his rugged looks and raw charisma, Hayden was typecast as the hard-boiled hero in classics like The Asphalt Jungle and Johnny Guitar. But during World War II, he lived a story that made every film noir look tame. When war broke out, Hayden put his career on ice and enlisted under the alias John Hamilton. Why the secret identity? Because Hayden wasn't just joining the Navy, he was recruited by the Office of Strategic Services, the forerunner to the CIA, and sent straight into the most dangerous missions behind enemy lines. His skills as a sailor made him a perfect choice for clandestine operations along the Dalmatian coast, smuggling weapons, agents, and resistance fighters through Nazi-infested waters under the cover of darkness. It didn't stop there. Hayden parachuted into Yugoslavia to coordinate with Tito's partisans, training local fighters in guerrilla tactics, organizing sabotage runs, and dodging Luftwaffe air raids. He led teams into occupied territory, navigating minefields and treacherous mountain passes to deliver vital intelligence and supplies to Allied forces. The work was grueling and often deadly, but Hayden's courage was legendary. He was awarded the Silver Star for valor in combat. But war leaves scars, and Hollywood was never quite the same for him afterward. Disillusioned by the industry's shallow glitz, Hayden famously called Tinseltown phony compared to the raw honesty of war. Even so, he brought that authenticity to every role, his eyes hinting at things he'd seen that no studio could ever stage. Sterling Hayden didn't just play the hero, he lived it. His time as a spy and resistance leader makes his Hollywood resume look almost quaint. For those who believe movie stars are all talk, Hayden's story is the ultimate reality check. Sometimes, the bravest men aren't on the screen. They're the ones who disappear into the shadows and risk everything for freedom. Leslie Howard. Most people remember Leslie Howard as the gentle, romantic Ashley Wilkes in Gone with the Wind, the guy in the white suit, sipping mint juleps while the world fell apart. But Leslie Howard's real story is a lot less polite and a lot more dangerous. Forget Southern charm. Howard was a master of subversion, a propagandist, and, many say, a wartime spy whose death remains shrouded in intrigue. When Hitler's war machine started rolling, Howard didn't settle for safe roles or empty speeches. He became a major figure in British propaganda, producing anti-Nazi films and delivering radio broadcasts that made Nazi leadership grind their teeth. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda chief, reportedly considered Howard such a serious threat that he ordered him tracked. But Howard's true role went even deeper. In 1943, Howard embarked on what was described as a cultural tour to Spain and Portugal. The truth? He was on a secret diplomatic mission, meeting with influencers and political power brokers to persuade neutral countries to resist Nazi pressure and support the Allies. He traveled under the cover of movie stardom, but reportedly carried sensitive messages, relayed coded instructions, and coordinated covert Allied operations. British intelligence later confirmed he was no mere figurehead. And then came the fatal twist. On June 1st, 1943, Howard boarded a civilian flight, Flight 777 from Lisbon to London. It was shot down by German fighters over the Bay of Biscay. Everyone on board perished. Was it a tragic mistake or a targeted assassination? Some say the Nazis mistook him for Winston Churchill. Others insist Howard himself was the target, silenced for his espionage and anti-Nazi influence. The British government never fully revealed the truth, but what's undeniable is that Howard died in the service of something far greater than Hollywood glamour. His courage and mysterious end became legend. The next time you see that genteel smile on screen, remember, Leslie Howard's most heroic performance happened off camera in a world where the stakes were life and death. Claude Rains. Claude Rains might be best remembered for his sophisticated sneers and smooth villainy in classics like Casablanca, The Invisible Man, and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. But while he was dazzling audiences on stage and screen, Rains was quietly waging a very different war, not with bullets or bombs, but with secrets and subtlety. Rains was no stranger to hardship. He lost most of his eyesight in World War I and clawed his way to stardom against the odds. When World War II erupted, he didn't join the front lines, but he did become a vital behind-the-scenes asset for the British. Rains leveraged his Hollywood connections and cultural cachet to gather and relay crucial information to Allied intelligence. How did he do it? By using his position in the theater and film communities to pass messages in the guise of scripts, recommendations, and friendly advice. Rains's fame allowed him to circulate among American power players and British diplomats alike, offering guidance to undercover operatives stationed in California. He was a cultural courier, someone whose very presence allowed him to transport ideas and instructions, often without anyone realizing what was really going on. Declassified records later revealed Rains was involved in wartime propaganda coordination. He helped shape the scripts and strategies that kept American morale high and steered public opinion toward Allied causes. He even advised British intelligence on how best to court the big American studios for support. Rains was never a man for grandstanding. "I never cared for being a hero," he once said, "but I believed in winning the war, no matter how quiet my part." For the man who famously vanished on screen, his real espionage role was just as ghostly and just as effective. Hollywood's greatest invisible man may have done his most important work in the shadows. Gene Kelly. Everyone remembers Gene Kelly twirling a soaked umbrella and singing in the rain, all charm and acrobatics and pure infectious energy. But during World War II, Kelly was using those same skills and that superstar persona in service of the Allies, both on and off the stage. Turns out, Hollywood's favorite song and dance man had moves the Nazis never saw coming. When the U.S. joined the war, Kelly wasted no time enlisting. He joined the U.S. Navy and was assigned to the photographic section of naval intelligence. This wasn't just about snapping glamour shots. Kelly was put to work making morale-boosting films, documentaries, and training reels for Allied troops overseas. His job was to communicate, motivate, and keep spirits high under brutal conditions. Kelly poured his heart into producing, scripting, and starring in these films, often in secret, so the enemy wouldn't catch on. But his service didn't stop at the camera. Kelly became a cultural envoy for America, traveling on morale tours to boost Allied unity, especially between the U.S., Britain, and France. He used his charisma, humor, and sheer magnetism to bring soldiers together, remind them of what they were fighting for, and encourage unity at a time when the world was anything but. In post-war Europe, Kelly played a subtle yet powerful role in occupation efforts, quietly building bridges and trust among allies. Some might say Kelly wasn't a spy in the James Bond sense. He didn't sneak behind enemy lines with a gun or a gadget. But his ability to shift attitudes, boost morale, and inspire the fighting spirit made him a secret weapon in the Allied arsenal. Intelligence agencies recognized that in the age of total war, winning hearts and minds could be just as vital as any military victory. So the next time you see Kelly dance, know that his greatest performances weren't always for the camera. Sometimes, his most important audience was the one fighting to save the world, Robert Montgomery. You know Robert Montgomery as the ultimate matinee idol, handsome, charming, and forever locked in Hollywood's collective memory as the everyman hero. But, off-screen, Montgomery took heroism to a level that left even his best film roles in the dust. When World War II broke out, Montgomery didn't just lend his face to war bond posters or tour army camps for applause. He signed up for the real thing, trading the red carpet for combat boots and the director's chair for the nerve center of Allied naval intelligence. Montgomery enlisted in the U.S. Navy, quickly rising to the rank of lieutenant commander, but that was just the beginning. He became a vital liaison between the Navy and the Office of Strategic Services, the precursor to the CIA. In this shadowy world of coded messages, secret missions, and deception, Montgomery's charm and quick thinking were his most powerful weapons. He coordinated communications for high-stakes operations across Europe, helping plot covert landings and rescue missions, work that directly supported the biggest gamble of the war, the D-Day invasion. And he didn't just sit behind a desk. Montgomery landed with the first waves at Normandy, risking his life to gather battlefield intelligence in real time, racing under fire to deliver vital updates to Allied commanders. No stunt double, no retakes, just pure guts, grit, and nerves of steel. After the war, Montgomery returned to Hollywood, but he brought something back with him that no Oscar could buy: the gravitas and confidence of someone who'd stared real danger in the face. His Secret Service didn't stop after the shooting ended either. Montgomery later became a strategic consultant to President Eisenhower on media and communications, a role that proved his talent for outsmarting the enemy wasn't limited to war zones. If you ever doubted that actors could be true heroes, look no further than Robert Montgomery, a man who stepped out of the spotlight, straight into the line of fire, and made sure his greatest role was for a cause that mattered. So, next time you settle in for a classic Hollywood flick, remember, sometimes the most unbelievable stories are the ones that never made the credits. These stars lived double lives, risking it all in the shadows so the rest of us could enjoy the light. Which legend shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you want more secrets from Hollywood's Golden Vault. And don't forget, every legend has another side. Will you ever see them the same way again?